This is your place for all things Detroit Red Wings and all things Chicago Blackhawks. With your hosts, Jordan Linscott, David Barnhouse, Nick LePage, and Tim Stompanato. This is the Stick Blade Podcast. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Stick Blade Podcast. It is your place for all things Detroit Red Wings, Chicago Blackhawks, news around the NHL. On tonight's show, there's nothing really to talk about the Red Wings and the Blackhawks. The NHL Stanley Cup Playoffs are underway, and boys, whose playoff bracket is wrong? Spoiler alert, literally everybody's, because all of the heavy hitters got knocked out. Saw nobody. Tonight we're going to talk about what is it?
When's the last time a President's Trophy team won the cup? Was it you guys?
2013.
2013.
That's the Blackhawks. Not a big deal.
But the craziest, I really think craziest turn of events you could ask for with that NHL playoffs this year. All of the big names going in got knocked out in the first round. And we're going to talk about all of those matchups and just what on earth is going on with these playoffs, because it's wide open now.
I'm so excited to talk about these.
I'm your host for tonight, Jordan Linscott, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, David Barnhouse, Nick LePage, and Tim Stompanato. Everybody, welcome to the show. Boys, about them playoffs.
This is
I felt like a genius for up until Rangers Devils Monday night. I mean, I'm not to give myself some tummy sticks too much, but I had the number one bracket in the world until the Rangers lost to the Devils.
I'm the first one to admit I did not see the Florida Panthers being what they are right now. Right now, the way that they massacred the Bruins, the way that they're going toe for toe with Toronto. Listen, I did not expect the Panthers based on their regular season, but I guess it goes to show their regular season. It's just all about getting in. Anything can happen in the playoffs.
Yeah. But before we go series by series, this has been absolutely nuts. Though this has been an unreal playoffs. Just the first round has been magical so far. I mean, most games have been tight. It's just back and forth hockey, physical, as you expect once April comes around. But I mean, upsets from seeing defending Cup champs eliminated to seeing the favorite of the playoffs eliminated. It has been just sensational hockey, and I can't wait to go series by series with you guys tonight, boys. It has been a ride.
Yep.
Let's do it.
We can go ahead and just start. We'll start over in the West and we'll work our way to the East, because I feel like the West had a lot of really interesting matchups that we can talk about. The East had the big upsets, I think, more than anybody really expected to see. So we're going to start in the West first. The Seattle Kraken beat the Colorado Avalanche in 7 games. The defending Stanley Cup champions were beat by a team that was very much out of the playoffs last year.
I'm just
this
curious.
This is such a feel-good story, right?
Just going back to the original brackets that we had, who of us had the Kraken moving on? Because I know I did.
I'm pretty sure I did.
I had Kraken in 6.
I don't think I did, but I wanted them. I can't remember if I picked them or not.
All right. So we called it. That's great. I mean, the Avalanche lost one of their key players. He just started Well, they lost Landeskog. Makar was suspended for a game. And then, was it Valerie Nichushkin?
Yeah, Nichushkin.
He's got quite the situation on his hands.
I have no idea. I've read bits and pieces of scraps. I don't even want to necessarily get into, because it's all just theories at this point. But like, losing him was a huge blow to them as well.
Mm-hmm. That and the fact they didn't replace Nazem Kadri this year during the offseason, like that really bit him this year.
They were hoping that Newhook was going to step in and be that C2 this year, and he's just not there. I think he can be, but he wasn't there yet, and they did not find anyone to plug that hole, and it showed. They were back to being a one-line team in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, it's just Seattle just felt like they wanted it more. Like they were one of those teams we kept going back and forth in the group chat. They had nothing to lose. Like nobody had them in the playoffs this year. They were a team that was a bunch of rugrats put together. Like even when we seen them get drafted in the expansion draft. It was like, what is
It
going on
was,
here?
yeah.
But it is so awesome to see how they went one completely different route than the Vegas Golden Knights did, and seeing how that unfolds of more of a rebuilding route, even though there was nothing to rebuild. It was just
Yeah.
like we're gonna build for longevity. And man, they kind of took the world by storm really quick. I did not expect them to make this jump this quickly.
Well, and they're even experiencing and overcoming adversity right now because they lost Jared McCann. They're like number one center. He scored 40 goals in the regular season. They're asking Matty Beniers to step up even more now because with McCann out, like you've got to. But losing him, I kind of thought that they were just going to flounder from there, and they just kept on moving. The Kraken are vibes. That's what they're all about.
I mean, that was like the thing that really surprised me about Seattle is like Seattle. I mean, you've kind of said it before, but they're one of those teams who, when you look at their lineup, they don't really have definitive superstars there. They just have really good players who are like basically playing as a 5-man group, and like that's winning them games. Like, I think what was it? One or two games during this entire series, Colorado seemed like they had better chances on net. Like, they just seem to be playing that 5-man group kind of like Carolina plays right now. And like,
Just
I
suffocating hockey.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
like, it's
yeah,
awesome to see it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Jordan. Like they just go out there and just basically suffocate your top line, and it's like, all right, well, we gotta put together some kind of offensive pressure, but it's just they got 20 guys collaboratively just going out there playing their toughest 200-foot game, and it's just impossible to go against. It's really showing that hockey's not a superstar sport. Like it's nice to have, but you got 20 guys in their locker room just all going out there, had the same goal, same focus. They could go out there and compete with the best one. And clearly
like,
we've seen that with the defending champs.
Don't get me wrong. They've got Matty Beniers, who's going to be a superstar in this
Yeah.
league, I think for sure. He's sort of their like flash right now. But I think the one thing I just want to wrap up on my end with is what a great revenge grudge match for Grubauer.
Yes.
Former Avalanche goalie. They let him go in the expansion draft. He had sort of a bumpy season, to say the least, last season. And he's had a killer playoffs. So I'm thrilled for him.
Yeah, as a Red Wings fan, it always feels good to watch the Avalanche lose. But going on what Jordan and I texted, I think while I was at camp about it, it seems like Seattle kind of figured out the Avalanche for a period of time in those games where they just couldn't feel comfortable. They were turning the puck over at a very high rate. Seattle had their number, and it happens. It's playoff hockey.
That's hockey.
You can have superstars, but if a team is gelling and they go in with a strong mindset and game plan, anything can happen. I mean, we're going to get to that with Boston and Florida in just a little bit.
They're going to overtime, by the way.
Yep.
Are they right now?
Yep.
Beautiful. We'll move on to the next series over in the West. The Dallas Stars took on the Minnesota Wild, and they won in 6. I predicted it in 4, but I was off by 2 games, but Dallas ended up winning this one. Did anybody in this pool actually end up taking Minnesota or no?
I think David did.
I did for my friend Jake. He's a huge Minnesota Wild fan, so I just picked them to support him.
Sorry,
he
Jake.
actually went to the game they won.
Oh, that's sick.
And they got like really, really good seats. Like I saw them on the TV as the camera went by a couple times. So at least they got to see a fun game where they won. But once Dallas got clicking, it was hard to stop them.
Yeah, Dallas they are dangerous in the West. I mean, I know Minnesota, we really kind of didn't really think much of them. They're little brother to basically everybody in the NHL. Like, we'll play you a first or second round, and that's about as far as your season will go.
Yeah.
But no, Dallas, Jake Ottinger is showing that he is just absolutely unreal. Jason Robertson still putting up good numbers. And it's Dallas Stars hockey. It's basically what they've done the last 2 seasons. And I mean, part of the reason why, just with Ottinger and their defense, and I mean, they have the scoring depth to do it. They're my favorite team in the West right now, and they are they're exciting. It was a hell of a series, but definitely a lot closer than I thought.
Like I said, like I legitimately thought that they were going to sweep Minnesota. Like, and it's fun pun, but the Stars, like they really are quote unquote star studded, right? Like Miro Heiskanen, Robertson, they've got Joe Pavelski. They had it or no, they traded Klingberg this year, but they have Jake Ottinger playing good. Like the Stars, they have stars, and like it showed against Minnesota.
Well, and you're also seeing for the first time in years, you've got a healthy Jamie Benn and a healthy Tyler Seguin, like clicking at the same time too. That right there gives them depth and gives them opportunity to play with. I think who's the other guy that they've got in the top set? Marshman?
What's his name? Marshman. Or they have what was his name? They have Hintz still too as well.
Oh, he's Roop Hintz is healthy and he's had injury concerns back and forth. So like I used to get on them real hard that they kept getting older and the guys they were bringing in were getting older. They were not increasing in the areas I thought that could help them win. Turns out when everyone's healthy, they had a little injection of rookies in Robertson and whatnot. I'm blown away by what they're doing. Nick, I'm with you. I think they're the team in the West right now.
Absolutely. It's just their lineup. It's just everywhere you look, it's like they don't have a gap in anything.
Their defense is weird to me because there's not a lot of names that jump out to me, and yet they are so stable and so consistent. And again, if anything gets through, you've got Ottinger back there. Like, isn't Glendening anchoring their fourth line as the center?
Glendening's playing down there.
That goes a long way too. You've got yourself one of the best defensive-minded centers in the game. Like, it's a really well put together team.
The thing that I think is the most interesting about this matchup was that Dallas, when you look at the past couple of years they had, like you mentioned, they haven't really had a ton of success that would warrant faith, but everybody was just healthy going into this year, and everybody just has looked good this last stretch of games. Max
Domi fit in well too. I think he immediately injected that energy into the Dallas Stars lineup, allowed him to play in the top 9 anywhere they needed him. So good deadline acquisitions is what like they've really done from start of the year to now, all the pieces that a GM is supposed to do to like put a good team on the ice. I got to give it to them.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to compare them to basically every year, I know health has been basically what we've been hammering home. And that's essentially it. Like we said with Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin, it is a very rare occurrence that they're on the ice at the same time in the same time frame. And then when they were making the playoffs a couple of years ago, Ben Bishop was their number 1 goalie, and he was dealing with injury issues. So it's quite the turn of events for Dallas Stars. It kind of seems like all the stars are finally aligning, no pun intended.
Puns intended seems in this
but one. It is they are a dangerous team from top to bottom. Like we said, you may not recognize every single name on the list, but it's just one of those teams that they're built, 12 deep on forwards and 6 deep on defensemen, and they could go stretch for that 7th defenseman as well.
We can move on to the third matchup in the West. The Vegas Golden Knights win in 5 games.
It was a bloodbath.
That was good on Connor Hellebuyck trying to make it work.
He's the only player on that team that did anything.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, they got chewed out too.
And it sounds like he's leaving.
I would. The Winnipeg sucks every year. Yeah. They're the worst team in the playoffs every year.
Someone on Reddit was like, we should try to bring him in because he's a hometown guy. I'm like, he wants to go to a team that's going for a cup right now. Yeah. We're not going for a cup right now. I'd love him. Don't get me wrong.
If he was free agent in 2 years, maybe. But like,
yeah, that's just Vegas dominance right there. They were the better team all around, and Winnipeg had no answer. I mean, they squeaked one out, but it's just Winnipeg is not good.
Guys, no. When does this team blow it up? I mean, we saw for the years with Paul Maurice, they never were able to get over that hurdle. We've heard for years that this locker room is not a good environment. It's sort of a cancerous locker room, no matter who they bring in, but a lot of the old leadership is still in there. Their coach this year sort of ripped the team at the end, and then Wheeler was responding to it later. He's like, I strongly disagree with a lot. Like, there is so much infighting. Like, when do you blow this up?
I think this is the end of that little core that they had.
It has to be.
It has to be with how toxic that environment's getting. especially with their fan base too. I mean, they're loyal Canadian fans, and they're going to harp on the team just as much.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
Winnipeg's a small community, but a big hockey community.
Yeah.
And their fans aren't going to take that.
no, yeah, I think we are seeing the end of the current Winnipeg Jets core, and I think a team the Hawks struggle with quite a bit. They might be breaking it up for a little while.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's very, very interesting. I think you hold on to Kyle Connor, maybe Nikolai Ehlers, but like Pierre-Luc Dubois wants out. Like it's no secret that he's always wanted to go to Montreal. There's so many guys that just have to go. I don't know
Blake
who you build
Wheeler,
around.
Adam Lowry, like
I'd take Blake Wheeler.
I don't know if I'd take Blake Wheeler, to be entirely honest. He seems like he's part of the problem.
Oh, well, then never mind. I'd take Kyle Connors.
Oh yeah, I'll take Kyle Connor any day of the week. It's a weird one. I mean, you've got Josh Morrissey, Neil Pionk, like a couple of guys on the defense that are really solid. Like the forward group, I just don't know who you build around besides Connor.
the thing is though, is like they don't really have like any, at least not that I can remember, they don't have any like high-end future prospects in their system because they've been buying for the past
They're stuck
4
in the
years?
they're stuck in the same rut that Minnesota is in my mind.
They're in purgatory.
Yep. And that's what the Hawks didn't want to be, and that's why Kyle Davidson blew it up. So like we could be right there.
I feel like Winnipeg is going to start rebuilding as soon as Hellebuck leaves. Because if you don't have a superstar caliber goaltender like
Then
Hellebuck,
this
like
team's gonna
Hellebuck
be
will steal you games.
Yeah.
You can't go anywhere in this league in terms of like playoff success. Like very few teams actually make it far without having a true starter goaltender. Very
I think
few.
the 2010 Hawks did. Listen, I love Niemi to death, but I don't know if he was a true starter goaltender.
They're showing highlight. Did Giovanni Smith? No, he didn't score it.
I love that Giovanni Smith's in the playoffs. Good for him. But yeah, I don't know. Winnipeg, I feel bad for Winnipeg fans because that team has become mired in mediocrity. They missed their window. It was the same window as like the Sharks, same window as us, and they just could not get it was the wrong time to peak. And now they're still stuck in like this horrible purgatory, as Nick said.
Yep, just mild mediocrity. I mean, also it just doesn't benefit that you draw Vegas round one.
And Jack Eichel has looked like Jack Eichel.
Yeah, you don't stand a chance when you got the Vegas Golden Knights clicking on all cylinders.
No, and like, I forgot that we're going to talk about. We will talk about what Vegas did with their TV stuff after we talk about the playoffs.
We got
that's
to,
actually something
it's the
of
best
note.
thing, and yeah.
Spoil like we'll talk about it later. There's like a little tease right now, but we'll talk about it later. Vegas did something really awesome for their television.
What a
crew with
refreshing
the
change.
fans.
Yeah.
Something I think the rest of the league should eventually look into doing, but we'll talk about that in a minute. We'll move on to the last matchup in the West, and
I'm so mad.
This was honestly the one I was looking forward to the most. The Edmonton Oilers beat the LA Kings in 6 games. Boys, Dr. Draisaitl himself, that dude, he dialed it to 12.
He's been their best player. He's been their best player the whole playoffs. And I think McDavid's obviously McDavid, but like Draisaitl found another gear.
Oh, he's up with one of the greatest. He's up for arguably the greatest playoff game performer in history. I mean, I think what was the stat the other night? He has like, was it 49 points in 20 games?
Stupid.
Something ridiculous like that. It's truly unreal what he's doing. Yes, it benefits playing with Connor McDavid, but he is in a world of his own as well. It's McDavid's world. There's a McDavid world. There's a Draisaitl world, and then there's everybody else. They are just unbelievable talents that you get to watch night in and night out. And I too feel bad for the Kings because I too was rooting for them. But
me too.
It's just when you got that offense clicking in and that power play was going. The Kings actually did pretty well in the penalty kill, but they gave them quite a few chances. So Edmonton is just. They're Edmonton, man. You let McDavid and Draisaitl get cooking, you're not in for a good time.
That's exactly it. They didn't have an answer for them.
I mean, even Evan Bouchard, like he's actually looked really good these playoffs.
I think Evan Bouchard playing with Keith for the period of time that they were able to play together last year, I think that did a huge step for him in just learning how to play the game right, learning how to take care of yourself, because he's been a totally different person this year. He's taken that next step. I think he's been their best defenseman in the playoffs.
I mean, I think I even mentioned that in the group chat. Like, as much as people crapped on Holland for picking up Keith last year, you can tell like Keith rubbed off on him a decent amount.
Intangibles.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, David, did you get to watch any of this series or no?
I missed a lot of that one because it was late and camp was draining.
You were outdoor with education.
Yes.
I will say this, like, I know that like the Kings have like they have some younger players in their pipeline.
yeah.
Like, you know, they've got Turcotte, they've got Velarde, they've
Quentin
got
Byfield.
Byfield. But do you guys think that they should kind of like just get ready to transition away from like Kopitar, Doughty, and crew and just accept that they're going to be bad for 2 or 3 more years to get ready to build around like this young group they have coming in?
Yeah, no.
Oh, I think they should fizzle out as soon as the next core starts coming in. I think it should just be a clean transition, which it's looking like it's lining up for. Because, I mean, once they kind of dwindle out, you move them down a couple lines just for that veteran presence.
That's what I'm thinking.
But you have the new core take over, and then, I mean, it's kind of like a fair trade-off. Like they get to ride out their careers with their team that grew their talent and that they've always played for, and then they're part of a ride. The Kings are a team that can make the playoffs year after year going forward.
I agree. It sucks how things went down with Jonathan Quick, but with Kopitar and Doughty, I don't see a reason why. As again, Philippe Deneau is able to anchor that second line. He can do first line responsibilities if he needs to, but you've got a couple young guys that were high draft picks that could theoretically step up into that first or second line center wherever they put Deneau. You can easily transition Kopitar down as his age progresses. Same with Doughty. I'm with Nick. I think that you can continue building your team. You don't necessarily have to build around Kopitar and Doughty. You don't have to push to, we got to get one last win out for them. I think they're now just a veteran presence on the team as this team is organically moving forward into its next core. Man, that's refreshing.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing I kind of want to talk about before we move on from this one, we always kind of talk about, teams rebuilding and trying to acquire, high-end level assets, like first and second overall level picks and how they can transform a franchise. If Byfield can pan out to be as good as people wanted him to when he got drafted, this might be one of those scenarios where the Kings missing the playoffs for a year or two, they were able to acquire the high-end assets to keep their team competitive throughout the window of their current core. Like it's almost like if your team gets lucky by missing the playoffs and they get those lottery picks that are the true high-end guys and they pan out, you kind of pay 2 years or 3 years worth of pain to have really continued sustained success.
Yeah,
the next 10 years.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be like 5 years of just straight in the dumpster. Like for a hockey team, you need maybe 1 or 2 superstars, and then you need to hit on the depth picks. You need to hit on the picks that are like 10 to 20 or 20 to 30. You need to find those diamonds in the rough or some second rounders, third rounders.
And that's what Boston does really well.
Yeah. I think if you hit on 50% of your picks as a general manager in hockey, you are doing an amazing job. Amazing job. Obviously, when it comes to lottery picks, you want to hit on 100% of those. That's just not how the world works. But no, I think the Kings are definitely a model franchise. A lot of rebuilding teams look after and be like, that's what we want to do. I'm sure if the Hawks had it their way, like if Davidson could go back in time and, give Bowman and the old regime a boot, that's the way they could do it. Because, Kane and Tays would fizzle out, ride their careers out with the Hawks, and the new core would take over. But, here we are.
It is remarkable that think about the 2 years that the Kings missed the playoffs. They drafted second overall with Byfield, and they got like 5th overall with Turcotte. Like they were in the playoffs. They missed for 2 years, historically dropping down. They weren't at like 10th, 13th, 14th. They went from playoffs to the bottom and then back up to playoffs. Like Rob, listen, I have issues with some of the stuff that Rob Blake has done with as GM in LA, but like, I got to give credit where credit's due. That's a phenomenal process.
Does anybody have anything that they want to close with on the West before we transition over to the East?
No, I mean,
No, I think we covered a lot of it. Yeah.
All right. So before we leave the West, I do want to ask, now that we've seen every team in the West playing in the playoffs, who's your guys' favorite out of the West now that we've actually seen everybody playing?
I've alluded to mine. Dallas Stars is my favorite team out of the West.
I think whoever wins Edmonton, Vegas, I think they could beat Dallas.
And see, I think whoever wins Kraken or the Stars is going to go on to win it, because I think Dallas is the best team in the West right now. And I think the Kraken are riding something deeper than skill. They're riding a wave, and I wouldn't want to face that. When you've got momentum, that's a scary thing.
I think Edmonton's the team that I picked. I mean, Draisaitl and McDavid have been great, but their depth pieces have been like starting
Yamamoto's
to
had a
more.
coming out party.
Yeah, Yamamoto's been contributing more. Bouchard has really taken a step forward. Skinner's actually been really serviceable in net. Like,
he's got a killer mustache.
Possibly like the best one in the league.
I think he's got the best mustache in the league.
But I don't know. I really like the way that Edmonton seems to have been like taking the lessons that they learned last year when they got to the conference finals and decided, okay, we're going to make it, take those lessons that we got and continue to build on those. Like,
this could be the year McDavid gets a cup.
It could be. I guess we'll see. We've got 3 more weeks worth of playoffs before we even begin to find out if that's even going to be a thing.
Yeah, who knows?
The West is really open. Like, I think the only team that was a really like a quote unquote heavy hitter walking in was the Avalanche, and they're done. Like, the West is open. Yeah. Everybody can compete in the West. Well, we can transfer over to the East now, because the East had probably my favorite matchups to talk about. I'm going to save my favorite for last. I'm going to be selfish in that regard because I'm going to be overjoyed when I talk about it.
I love it.
Let's go ahead and go on to the first series in the East. And the Toronto Maple Leaf, the team that has been dying for playoff success, hasn't won a playoff round in almost 20 years, defeats the juggernaut Tampa Bay Lightning finally in 6 games. Boys, did you guys see the video of Toronto when they got out and won that game to actually advance to the next round?
I didn't see it, but I'm guessing it was pandemonium.
It was a zoo.
Yeah, it was insanity.
You would have thought they won the Stanley Cup.
That's what they treated it like.
It's no, I mean, they got the monkey off their back. The boogeyman's gone. The first round jitters and yips are gone, and
Nick, to me, it felt like Chicago with the Cubs and like the Billy Goats curse and stuff like that. You would have sworn that the city was just like, we are free. We're broken. We've broken the curse. Like, I don't care what happens next. This is great. I think that they deserved it. The fans deserved some sort of goodness after being with this team for so long.
Yeah, what? It's their first playoff series win in 19 years?
Yeah, 19 years.
Yeah, okay, 19.
Almost 20 years.
Yeah, they've been 20 next year. No better team to do it against too than the Tampa Bay Lightning, who have played a ton of games, which I think that does come back to bite them.
Oh yeah,
they played so much hockey over the last few years, and
the fatigue is real.
Yeah, it was inevitable that all games go to Mexico.
Florida has a 3-0 series lead.
Let's go! Fuck you, Toronto! Never mind. We're back to the rest.
Yeah, no. I don't want them to win.
We were joking. I was joking with someone at work the other day. We're like, wouldn't it be great if Toronto finally wins the series, but then just gets swept in the next round?
Listen, I know we're going to talk about that series in a second, but the fact that they're not getting knocked out by Boston, we are robbed of a wonderful storyline. That said, going back to Toronto, man, I don't want them to win this round.
Rubber rats on the ice. Rubber rats on the ice.
Yeah, just as I was complimenting Toronto, I am now done talking about that last series because I am over thrilled.
Yeah, no, I'm good. Yeah, thrilled for honestly. I think that the depth pieces and some of the moves that they made at the deadline made a difference. They've actually got a reasonable rotation of defensemen this year, which they have not had. I think they're going to be hurt now that Samsonov is out.
Yeah.
If Samsonov is able to come back, then that's going to be a different story. But like, if he's out for the playoffs, I don't think that anyone can come in at this point and replace what he's brought to that team goal stability wise.
For me, with that series, Toronto, Tampa, I feel like Tampa is starting to get tired. Like it happened with the Wings. We made playoff after playoff after playoff, going deep and deep and deep. And the wheels are starting to kind of deflate and come off for Tampa, where I don't think they're going to crash and burn and rebuild, but they're not going to be a real legitimate threat for a while.
I feel like this is almost kind of the end of an era for Tampa. They had the first round exit a couple of years ago to the Blue Jackets, weirdly enough, of all teams, but I feel like this is kind of Toronto's, like, this is kind of like the statement series for them saying like, hey, like, yeah, we've had this chance before, but we finally made it happen this time. Like, I do think a lot of this needs to be attributed to the defensive pieces they brought in. I do stand by it. I think that they're still way too top heavy to be like really competing all the time.
Same.
But you kind of see it when they brought in just more depth players who were a little bit better, and they brought in some help for Morgan Riley, how much different that team looks.
And well, you free up Morgan Riley to actually be able to breathe. It's been fantastic for him. He's looked better than post deadline in my mind.
Like, the biggest knock on Toronto for the past couple of years has been that the team doesn't play defense, but when you actually get a legitimate top four guy to play with Morgan Riley, like it eases his load a lot.
Well, and like they brought in Mark Giordano at the last deadline and they re-signed him this year. So I know he's playing like third pairing minutes, but like that in itself has provided leadership and stability to their defense. So like, yeah, the reason I don't like Toronto is because I don't like the philosophy of load up on top six and hope that we outscore. That's not the style of hockey that I think is sustainable. But if they can round out this team, I give them a lot of credit.
Yeah, one last thing I want to touch on before we wrap up the series, Jordan. I want to go back to your comment. I don't think Tampa's going anywhere still. This is the first time they've lost in any other round besides the Stanley Cup final in 3 years.
When did they get swept by Columbus?
4 years ago, 5 years ago? Because they won back to back. They lost
4 or 5 years ago. Yeah,
they won back to back. Then they lost to Colorado.
Year 3.
And yeah, so it's been like 4 or 5 years. So I mean, this might be what's needed for them. You know, get some rest on your legs, get some rest on the body, and you know, they're going to be even more hungry next year. Like
and we gotta remember they traded for Tanner Jeannot, who was going to be like a big piece, and then he was hurt.
That did suck.
That trade still never will make sense.
Get a first, second, third, fourth, and fifth for a guy, man. And again, that's unfortunate. You get injured, you can't predict this stuff, but like that stings.
We can move on to the next matchup in the East, though. The Carolina Hurricanes, they take it in 6 games, boys. I mean, I think all of us had this one pegged as a Carolina win.
Oh, yeah.
They're like the definition of a 5-man group when they play. Like the closest thing that they have to superstars really are Sebastian Aho, Andrei Svechnikov, who Svechnikov has not been playing.
Yep.
And then you have Brent Burns and what's the other names? Kakaniemi are the other big names. Other than that, it's a bunch of really depth pieces for the most part. You know, they've got Fast. They have
that said, Jacob Slavin is a phenomenal defenseman, and like he doesn't get a lot of superstar accolades because he's not much of a point scorer, but like his defensive prowess. He's a true like two-way defenseman. I think he is like a phenomenal number 1D. But yeah, no, Jordan, to your point, 100%. It's once you get out of like the superstars and like those number one, the clear top guys, the rest of this team is where do you need me on what night and what do you need me to do? Because they go up and they punch the clock and they turn an absolute 60 minutes. It's fantastic. Because they just keep getting injured. Like people get injured, they bring somebody in, and that somebody says, "Cool, I'm ready to go," and they do it. It's absolutely phenomenal what Carolina has been able to do. They had a rough game today, but like phenomenal series in the first round.
Yeah, no, Carolina was just absolutely the better team in the series. I mean, you knew New York had to rely on Ilya Sorokin to kind of just carry them, and that's basically what they relied on all season. When you got a team like Carolina, it's impossible to rely on that for a 7-game series. They are just going to out tire you. They're going to outskate you. They're going to just outgrind you, and that's one of those teams that you just kind of see what they're doing now. I mean, I know they just lost big today, but with New Jersey too. New Jersey's got those young legs, but Carolina's one of those. What Rod the Bod does out there in Carolina, with the lack of, I don't want to say talent, just because they're injury riddled right now, but throughout the years, they've been a deadly team and they haven't really had star studded talent. And they continue to just make a run and just be a juggernaut to go against.
So good.
I want, like, obviously Carolina is really, I think, the definition of like true like depth wins games.
Oh yeah.
How far do you guys see them going this year? Because like I think it's interesting that like they're still looking this dominant even without like their top guys. Like, let's not lie here. If Andrei Svechnikov was playing, I think they would probably be winning a lot of these games by a bigger margin. Like a guy like him is missed. Like it's one of those few teams who, like, even when the stars are gone, they're still winning games. Now, granted, today was kind of an ugly game by them. New Jersey just,
but even then, they
seem to have
still rallied. Like New Jersey just had it today. It was on
like,
for New Jersey, and that's going to happen. I don't see why the Hurricanes can't make it to the Stanley Cup Finals. Realistically, I don't see why they can't make it there.
like I feel like they got enough pieces.
I got a team that will stop them, but I'll get into that in a little bit.
Yeah, I'm very curious about that.
They are a lethal weapon. I mean, they're doing this without Teuvo Teravainen, Andrei Svechnikov, and Max Pacioretty. Those were three of the biggest names that
was their scoring.
If we did our preview, like if you look back to our preview, those are three names we talked about often because 100%. We're like, these are guys to look out for. This is what's going to carry the team. Turns out they don't need them. They would love to have them, but they don't need them because they are deadly without them still.
Those three guys are win more.
Yeah, exactly. I think they've got the depth. They're showing that they've got the depth. They're showing that they've got the guys that can slot into place. To me, this team is all about a strong coaching structure. It's about the chemistry. It's about the message in the room. Those things can carry a team. I think we could very easily see them definitely make the Eastern Conference Final. I don't realistically see a reason why they couldn't make it to the Stanley Cup Final, barring somebody just simply being better.
I do. I think they might make the Stanley Cup Final. Like, they, even without the stars, they've just looked so good. Like, even today, like, it felt like I actually got a chance to watch the New Jersey game that they played today.
Oh, fantastic.
It's my day off. And New Jersey, I don't want to say they didn't earn it because they did, but it felt like it was almost like puck luck was on New Jersey's side today. They caught some really lucky bounces.
A few of those goals were,
I don't know, like,
and then some 5-on-3 power plays back to back.
Yeah, but what's weird is like Carolina rallied with like 2 shorthanded goals.
Yeah,
like it was a bit of a bloodbath today, but like it was more just scoring left and right. Whatever it was New Jersey was on. They were absolutely buzzing on offense. It's just a good game, just an exciting game.
We can move on to the next matchup in the East, one that nobody saw coming, I don't think. We just were talking about New Jersey. They beat the Rangers in 7.
I'm so angry.
Guys, nobody saw this, right? A team that added Patrick Kane, Vladimir Tarasenko, has Adam Fox, has what's his name, Igor Shesterkin, Chris Kreider, Artemi Panarin,
Mika Zibanejad
still has young guy line. Yeah, they have Lafreniere and Kakko playing depth lines for him.
Trouba.
Yeah, we could just name an entire team of like good players, which we did, and then they lost, and I'm pissed. And there's a reason why Gallant got fired.
Like,
that's where I'm at.
In terms of, I mean, we'll talk about the other matchup in the East in a second, but in terms of like how on earth did this happen? This has got to be the one of the East, right? Like nobody can tell me with a straight face they saw New Jersey beating the Rangers.
New Jersey was able to get their teeth kicked in those first 2 games. They got together and said, okay, this is what we need to adjust. This is how we need to work our lines. This is what we have to take away from them. They changed their game plan. They put their assets to use, and they totally rewrote the script on the rest of the series. The Rangers, the minute that their plans did not work, Gallant had no answer. Now, granted, a lot of the Rangers' top players did not show up in this series, and that's frustrating. But Gallant, as the coach and the coaching staff as a whole, had absolutely no answer to the chess game that was matching and countering New Jersey. Nick, I know you've got some theories on this or some thoughts on this.
Dude, it is aggravating. I mean, I'm not gonna act like I'm a diehard Rangers fan. I was rooting for them because Patrick Kane joined them. But still, night in, night out, it was appointment television for me. You know, I focused on that series majorly, and it's just Artemi Panarin and Mika Zibanejad. How are you two of the biggest stars in hockey and you can't show up when the lights shine bright? Panarin did the same thing over here in Chicago.
He did it every year in Chicago. He's done it every year with the Rangers. He had a little blip of it with Columbus, but like he does not show up in playoffs.
He's a regular season player. And it is just frustrating how they have this talented of a roster up and down. You have three lottery picks playing on a third line all together. Like, and then you got Vladimir Tarasenko Cup winner, Patrick Kane Cup winner, Artemi Panarin. He was Calder Trophy winner and multiple other awards. And
Chris Kreider played his heart out.
Yeah, Kreider, Adam Fox, Patrick Kane, and Shesterkin, Goodrow, and Tyler Mott. Everybody else, what the hell was that?
Yeah. And again, I see a lot of people ragging on Kane, like, oh, wait a minute. He was like the 3rd highest point producer on the team. Like, listen, even with a bum hip, he showed up in the playoffs. He had like 6 points in 7 games, and nobody did anything in the last game. So, like, look, I get it. Like, you think Patrick Kane's going to come in and save the day, but that's not what he was brought in for. He was brought in to do exactly what he did.
Yeah, 6 points on that roster. He had 6 points. That should be good for like 7th.
And then the rest of it was just Chris Kreider deciding, I want all the records as a Ranger. Let's go. It's stupid. And like, look, I can't take away from the Devils. The Devils are fast. Like, listen, when they changed their game plan, the Devils deserved to win this series. They countered what the Rangers were doing, and they did it masterfully. I was blown away by what they did, and I'm excited to watch the rest of this series with the Hurricanes versus the Devils. But yeah,
that guy got lit up.
I'm absolutely gutted. As someone who is a Rangers fan, I'm gutted by this playoff turnout.
Yeah, Gerard Gallant. Thank God he's gone. He's a joke. It just seems like he overstays his welcome quite a bit wherever he ends up.
He does this and it's so weird because that used to be like, oh, he was doing so well, and then they fired him, and then he was in Vegas. It's like, well, then they let him go. Like this is wild. We should get Gerard Gallant. Like
he just refuses to change his style of coach. He won't adjust to everybody's.
It's the same thing Jeremy Colleton did. Yeah. Like just wouldn't adjust his plan.
He's stubborn. Yeah. But the Devils do have real quick. They do have 2010 Blackhawks vibes for me. Just with
I agree.
Hughes equals Kane. Hischier equals Taves. Meyer equals Hossa. Dawson Mercer, Sharp, Schmid. Antoniemi kind of coming out of everywhere.
Hold up. I know we want to wrap this up, but like Akira Schmid came out of nowhere, right? Are we like this kid's killing it?
Mm-hmm. I mean, the whole Devils lineup, though, like aside from Hughes, Hischier, everybody kind of just seems to have dialed it up like for the playoffs so far. Like even Tomas Tatar looked a lot better today.
Great.
They had a big turnaround. I remember when we beat them early in the season, the crowd was cheering to fire
Lindy.
Yeah,
And then they
fire
changed
Lindy.
it to "I'm sorry, Lindy."
Yep. Like, good for them. I'm really happy for them. I loved watching it go to game 7. You know, to help, ease the pain for the Rangers, I'm willing to offer a 4th-round pick for Lafreniere just to give him a fresh start.
Mighty kind of you.
Mighty kind. That's a 2028 4th-round pick.
Oh yeah, no, of course, yeah. I'm
Oh.
looking for the future.
I want to
Um,
move. If no one has anything else to add for here, I want to move on to what is my favorite series to talk about on the East. The Big Bad Bruins lost in
Holy
7 games to the
cow.
Florida Panthers.
Now, Jordan, you say lost in 7 games, but they were up 3-1 in the series, and they lost 4 games in a row.
So
What a
we're going to take a
nightmare.
little bit of extra time to cover this one because I feel like this one, if you give a little extra time to a series, it's this one right here.
Jordan,
So-
since you are the #1 Boston hater on this show, I will
Yeah.
give you the floor first.
Yeah, please. The floor is yours.
All right, for anybody who didn't keep up with the hockey world this season, the Boston Bruins set the NHL record for most wins in a season ever. And not only did they do it in like the most wins ever, they did it the fastest ever. Like no team has been as dominant as the Boston Bruins were. And then they went out this right before the trade deadline, they traded basically all their 1st-round draft picks for the next, I think, 3 years for Tyler Bertuzzi, a certified top 6 player for the
Who
Detroit Red
fit
Wings.
great.
Who fit great for them. They picked up Dmitry Orlov, the arguably 2nd best defenseman on the Washington Capitals, because you didn't pick up John Carlson.
He was hurt.
Yeah, because you added you already had a great goaltending tandem in Ullmark and Swayman. Patrice Bergeron, I think it's the end of his career. He's 37 years old right now. Him and David Krejci are getting up there.
Yeah.
They had a very long hug at the end of game 7.
Like this was a team that was going into these playoffs coming off success the league has never seen before. Who they didn't just push some of their chips in, they pushed all their fucking chips in, and it blew up in 7 games against a Panthers team who everybody wrote off, who just barely squeaked in here.
Everybody?
Not everybody.
Okay, almost everybody wrote
3
off
out of the
because they
4 of
barely
us.
squeaked in. God, what happened?
Bobrovsky
Number
decided
one.
to be good.
#1, Tyler Bertuzzi just played himself into a really good contract this series. Like, even though the
Yes.
Boston Bruins lost, he was there every night, putting it all out there. I honestly don't know what happened. I think the Bruins might have gotten a bit complacent, and by the time they tried to get it back on track, it was too late. Florida was much hungrier than they were. You had Tkachuk, you had Verhaeghe, you have Barkov, all these guys that were just pushing it to the limit. I mean, Tkachuk has drawn the most penalties this playoff series, and it shows. Like, he's a in-your-face
He's such a
rat player, but he's going to make you mess up and get penalties, and that's going to cost you. You had the two of the best goaltenders, I believe, in the league this year with Swain and Ullmark.
Yep.
But just the small mistakes, like they blew that overtime game where he played the puck from behind the net really foolishly. But it's just, didn't see it coming. The Red Wings are now still the only team with 62 plus wins to win their first playoff series. Tampa didn't do it, and now Boston didn't do it.
I mean, when you got the unicorn in Matthew Tkachuk, he is a difference maker. I mean, it's a physical game night after night with him. He's a difference maker. He's someone you worry about when he's on the ice. And then everybody else just kind of came through too. It's just, I know Barkov, it hasn't been himself, but Bobrovsky really turned the corner here. And it was a collaborative effort to take down the Big Bad Bruins. I know they were the Cup favorites, obviously, coming into the season.
Yep.
And Florida, I think I had them at the beginning of the year winning the Cup, and it was because of adding Matthew Tkachuk. I know losing Huberdeau and what's his face? Who else did they trade from? The defenseman.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah. Regardless.
Yeah.
I mean, when you add Matthew Tkachuk, he's one of the best players in the league, and then it just fits that style of
Was
play
it
that
Josh
Florida
Manson?
It might have been.
I think it was Manson.
Yeah, it might have been, but I mean, regardless,
It doesn't matter.
when you add a physical presence, that's kind of what Florida was missing with last season, that they were just kind of a skilled team, and now they have this mammoth beast, Matthew Tkachuk, who is just, I don't know. They are dangerous. As you can see, they're up 3-0 on the Leafs now. And Sam Reinhart's doing his thing.
Yeah.
Sam Bennett's also just a nice physical presence out there too. So it's gonna be they are going to be the team to beat out of the East.
Brandon Montour.
Yeah, Montour. There it is.
Not Josh Manson. Yeah, Brandon Montour. That's
I
exactly
like Montour.
it.
He's a beast.
He was a game changer for them. Yeah, and Gustav Forsling has gotten better. Nick, remember that name?
Yeah,
remember that hawk that we had?
Couldn't even tell you who we got from anymore.
No point.
They're in some Swedish league now. But no, Florida is my team out of the East right now, guys. I think I'm gonna ride back to my beginning of the season prediction. I think Florida is the team to beat in the East.
Now,
okay.
My question before we wrap: the big acquisition, trading the picks away. He's a free agent. Where does Bertuzzi go now?
He goes to get paid.
That's not wrong.
I mean, he's going to go to a team that's competitive, but has the cap space for him.
I didn't listen to it, but what is that called?
Scott Wheeler?
No, the Red Wings podcast that's always everywhere. Ryan Hahn is on it. They talked about Bertuzzi possibly coming back to Detroit. I'm like, there's no way he comes back to Detroit.
I can't see him go back to Detroit. As much as that'd be cool, I don't see it.
He'll cost too much money for what Detroit's going to be trying to do next year.
Yep.
So he's going to Tampa for veteran minimum, just because he gets all the every single dollar.
The Corey Perry special.
We kind of talked about teams blowing it up after the playoffs this year. Like, do the Bruins, do you think, actually look at like doing a rebuild yet? Like,
no.
No.
Just
because they're losing Krejci and possibly Bergeron doesn't mean that they still have, they have Pasta, they have Orlov, they have
Taylor Hall,
they have their two netminders,
Charlie McAvoy.
Like, they're still there, and they can easily retool. I mean, they could sign Bertuzzi. They could just re-sign.
But they need centers. That's going to be the kicker.
I think Krejci and Bergeron go one more year. They don't want to leave with this bad taste in their mouth.
Man, I don't know. Yeah, I just don't know how much more they've got in them as like a 1C, 2C combination. But that said, Patrice Bergeron defies aging and defies expectations every year.
Look at Joe Pavelski over in Dallas.
Yep.
Yeah. Who am I that there's a reason I'm not a GM. I could see Bertuzzi on Anaheim. If they think that like Zegras, Troy Terry, that group is ready to take that next step and they sign, hey, what if we get depending on who they pick in the draft, if they get Bedard or Fantilli.
We thought they were taking that next step this year when they were making those free agency signings.
Yeah, I thought a lot of things, and now I'm going to start thinking them again.
It's the Michael Scott thing. I'm ready to be hurt again.
Yeah, 100%.
Back around.
But I don't know. I feel like after this playoff series, like, even if it's not right now, I do think that this kind of might be signaling to Boston, like, hey, a rebuild might not be as far away as they think. Like, especially because of the fact that they basically just punted on their first round draft picks for the next 3 years.
You can't
not
rebuild
nothing,
when you
even
don't
if
have first round picks in the next 3 years. Yeah, that's a tough one.
Even when Boston hit that rock bottom, not their, I guess their version
of a rock bottom.
They had 3 picks back to back in the first round, and they missed on, I think, all but one.
Yeah.
I think they're a team that kind of rebuilds on the fly. They retool on the fly. They don't look to tear it down in the guts, especially when you just signed Pasta. I think a big part of signing Pasta, re-signing him was
some sort of guarantee. Yeah.
We're going to go for this thing year after year, like we are the Boston Bruins. So they're going to be an interesting team to look sought after this offseason. They're going to be an interesting team to follow. So we'll see what happens.
We can move, or before we move out of the playoffs, we talked about who we like in the West. Who do you guys like in the East? I mean, Nick, you seem pretty sold on the Panthers, obviously.
Dude, it's the Panthers year.
I'm gonna continue to ride the Hurricanes until they give me a reason not to.
Okay.
You gotta go Squid Bros, Kraken.
Wait, that's the
No,
West.
we're
Oh,
talking about
sorry,
the East.
East. Oh, I think Panthers. They just look on fire right now.
I gotta say, Carolina. I like the
All
5-man
right.
unit. It seems to work.
Man, when it's a Maple Leafs Devils Eastern Conference final, we're all gonna be out of it, but I love
Oh.
it.
We can move on to what's going on around the rest of the NHL. There are really two big things to talk about. The first is directly related to the teams and the rosters and stuff like that in the draft. The other one that I think kind of flew under the radar for a lot of people, and a lot of people don't really even know that this happened. The Vegas Golden Knights came out this week and said, "Hey, next season, all of the games will be free to watch." I think it was for all of Nevada residents.
Mm-hmm.
All of Nevada
And within their local broadcasting, whatever that reach was, anyone that was in that broadcasting reach would be able to get the games.
Be able to get the games completely for free. Now, for anyone who doesn't really realize what this does, nobody has a reason now not to watch your games. So you don't if you were thinking about getting to hockey, you don't have to, and you live in that area. There's not a price barrier now for you to watch the games. If you want to watch the games and someone says, "Hey, this is a great game, you should check it out," you can just turn it on and watch the game.
Yep.
You're going to get such a big influx of fans who can just watch your game now.
No
eyeballs
blackouts.
matter. Yeah, no blackouts. That's huge. But not only just that, the team, they get all of the ad revenue now if they have the quote unquote monopoly on their stream, because they're not having to export it to other services.
Mm-hmm.
That ad revenue that they would be sharing with a broadcast partner, that's all theirs now. I think this is such a good move for the league.
Yeah, it's refreshing. It's needed, especially in the era that we are in now, where everybody's cutting their cords. Nobody really watches cable TV no more. And it's refreshing to see with the NHL, a league that struggles so much with, as hockey fans, we well know, blackout restrictions. It's annoying. And now you don't have to worry about that. I mean, hell, there was teams a few years ago that were struggling to get their games on TV because they were undergoing networking rights or whatever, like Colorado Avalanche. Now Vegas, it's making it free to stream to everybody in the Nevada area, and it's just a nice change of pace. And hopefully this is the initial movement that kind of starts around the league, because I could see more teams hopping on board with this, because if we're talking about growing the game, which the NHL is so adamant about, then let's do it. I mean, let's end these blackout restrictions.
I think that's my big thing, is the fact that somebody who's not even interested in getting into hockey, they're just flipping through, trying to find something to do, whether it's streaming or whether it's on, we still use an antenna for Kate, we get the basic channels and stuff like that. If you're flipping through and you end up on a game, you might catch a fan for life with that. They weren't looking for it. The way we grow the game is to make it accessible. It is the most inaccessible league to get into, in my mind, on every front. And so to do this, I think Vegas has done a monumental step that I hope works, because I have a feeling the rest of the league is looking at it saying, well, we'll see if it works there, and then we'll see what we do. So fingers crossed that it works for them, because this is the best way, in my mind, to grow the game.
I see one more team doing it this offseason. I think one more team follows suit. I think it might be the Kraken. You got I think the two expansion teams make sense to be the test dummies for this.
Yeah, what do they got to lose?
I mean, the thing that I also think is really relevant here, and as much as teams, they make money off of, broadcasting partners.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody can watch your game for free, guess what they're more likely to do if they watch a couple of games for free? They might decide, you know what? I want to go to a game in person.
Yep.
That's somebody who might buy a ticket for your game that was never going to go to begin with. That's somebody who's through the door now at your stadium, who's going to decide, you know what, okay, I'll fork out the 50 or $100, whatever it is for the game based on, who's playing that night, whatever. While they're there, they might decide, you know what, I like the atmosphere enough here. I want to keep coming back. And while I'm here, let's pick up some merch while I'm here. Great. You just started generating revenue off of somebody who was never going to check out your product because you just offered the initial bit of it to them for free. That is a huge step for growing your game and getting the team more popular in your area. Like, I feel like you would get so many more people just contributing to your organization financially if you just remove the initial barrier of entry to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, esports actually, like, they're kind of taking a page out of esports world. Like, like no one pays to watch a League of Legends stream. No one pays to watch a Call of Duty stream. But guess what? Those leagues make real money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it's groundbreaking. I really hope more teams follow suit, because this is something that could really change the league at the forefront. And you might get another legendary meme guy like that Salu City that we seen with St. Louis Blues many years ago, where it's just like, wait, they're allowed to hit each other this hard? I don't remember each tweet,
but I hear you.
But that thread was legendary, and especially a city like Vegas, though. Hell, they turn on the game early. Say they come across it before the pregame ritual, or they have that light show and everything. Like I gotta get there. That looks like a blast, and boom.
Or at the very least, they say, you know what? I got hooked on watching Vegas. Now I kind of want to watch other games. So they get ESPN, and they don't care about the blackout because they're already watching the Vegas Golden Knights. So now they're watching the rest of the league. They're watching Subban's show that he's coming. Like, they're getting into hockey, and they're generating even more revenue for the league because now they're in. You got to hook them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm trying to think. The only other sport that's really done something even close to this really is the men's soccer in the United States. They put all
on
their
Apple
games,
TV.
Yeah, like they put all their games on like one singular service where there's no blackouts. This is kind of the closest thing to that, but I actually like this better. It's better for getting local fans involved, which is really where a lot of these teams' revenue comes from. Like the original 6 teams will always have fans everywhere, but these like smaller market teams, a lot of their revenue does come from local fans. Like Vegas's fan base started in Vegas. Minnesota's fan base is mainly in Minnesota. Dallas's fan base is mainly in Dallas.
Winnipeg.
Yeah, we just talked about him. Winnipeg, that's a small fan base, but guess what? You can grow it by removing barriers of entry.
Yep.
I think this is a great move. And I don't even really watch Vegas a ton, but honestly, this has me wanting to go out and buy a Vegas Golden Knights jersey as a way of saying, look, this is an organization that I like what they're doing.
They do have one that glows in the dark.
I wouldn't buy that one. If I was going to buy one, I'd get like the full. Like,
I have a former
one.
student who's a Vegas Golden Knights fan. He always wear their hat. I'm like, that's such a good logo. Like, I love their logo.
I don't know. Hopefully more teams follow suit with this, because this has the potential to be really good for growing the game.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
We can transition to what is the last piece of news for us to talk about. The NHL draft lottery comes up tomorrow of all days.
Not
the
ready
lottery
for the
balls
Lions.
are going to be falling, and we talked.
The Red Wings are definitely going to be falling.
I hope not, but
I'm not gonna get any work done tomorrow. I'm just gonna be just refreshing and checking everything tomorrow. All of the last minute updates, what's going on. Oh my god.
When is the draft lottery? You don't need to do all that. It's at night, isn't it?
It is at night.
But the day is for planning, David. How will the team get their pick if I'm not completely invested in it during the day?
You're not in the room.
But so the NHL's draft lottery is coming up tomorrow, and everybody's obviously hoping for lottery balls to drop their way to get the number 1 overall pick. Connor Bedard truly does look like one of those players who's going to change a franchise if he keeps at the trajectory he's going. We talked about it a couple weeks ago, who you guys would be happy about seeing win the lottery if it wasn't, the Blackhawks or the Red Wings respectively. With the draft lottery happening tomorrow, I want to reverse the question.
I love it.
Who would, like, if the lottery went their way and you saw them get first overall, Who would make you want to pull your hair out when you see him draw that name?
Who's going first?
I'll do it.
Do it, Tim.
St. Louis Blues. I can't do it. Listen. I'd hate for Arizona to get him. I'd hate for the Caps to get him. But like to have St. Louis get him, to have St. Louis vault us, get Bedard, move us back, God forbid, and then have to deal with it in division for no, absolutely not. What an absolute nightmare scenario.
Yeah. For me, it's the local team where I'm at, the Capitals. Nothing against Ovechkin, great player. I just can't stand Capitals fans. Like when I first moved out here is before they won the cup, but I knew people who acted like this team was the best team ever before that. And it was just super annoying. They were like, yeah, we're the greatest team. Caps are the best. I'm like, you haven't won anything. Like, you're not. And it was just annoying. And the annoyance that I'm going to hear about, we got the greatest player in Connor Bedard, blah, blah, blah. I would literally rip my hair out.
I got to agree with you, David. Like, the Caps would be such an awful team to win this. Like, you're coming off of having Alex Ovechkin, arguably the greatest goal scorer of all time, a guy who's hitting his decline, and a team that has enjoyed plenty of success under his watch. A team that honestly didn't even really miss the playoffs by a ton this year. Like they're what are they, like 8th best odds or something like that? Like they weren't.
Yeah, they're one above the Wings.
Yeah.
Like, they weren't historically bad this year. And for a team like them who's had this much success to lose out on the playoffs 1 year and to instantly get a franchise changer again, it would be so unbearable to watch as a fan of a team like the Wings. And hometown bias, yes, admittedly, but even like subjective or objectively to look at it and look at a team like, like the Wings, for example, that has been constantly screwed. That would be such a feel bad, regardless of like what team you're rooting for.
I simmed it once, the Tankathon, and it just gave us all the bad things. It put St. Louis at number 1.
Awful.
It put Chicago at 5.
Awful.
And we dropped to 11.
This is hell. This is my hell.
Thanks, I hate it.
Yeah.
Thanks, I hate it. All right, Nick.
Nick, who do you got?
It's tough. I mean, there's so many teams I hate in this lottery right now. I mean, Nashville, it's very small odds, but they
they're still in there.
St. Louis, they have a shot. West Coast, just because it would suck if he gets buried away in Anaheim or San Jose, and you don't get to really watch him that much. But I'm just gonna say it just because this city's a dumpster. Nobody likes it. It's the Columbus Blue Jackets. Just nobody's gonna get enthused to watch Connor Bedard go to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Like maybe he could be their Rick Nash, and like they finally get the superstar they don't deserve.
Right.
But when it comes to that, I besides the division rivals, I'm going to say Columbus just because it's boring. At least San Jose and Anaheim, they have a reputation around the league. It's just Columbus is gross, and it's in Ohio, and Ohio's smelly.
I hate Ohio. Now, would I hate you guys winning it? No. Would I be a little bit annoyed because you just had some great successes under Taves and Kane? I'd be a little annoyed.
Yeah, but
I changed my mind. The Detroit Red Wings.
See what you did? I mean, at least we haven't been we didn't come off of this is our first year missing the playoffs and we're down low and now we get Bedard. Like we haven't won a playoff round since 2017. Or we haven't been in the playoffs since 2017. Realistically, I know there was the play-in round in 2020.
The COVID playoff that you guys.
Don't get me started.
But what I mean.
Fucking Rangers.
What you guys say about the Rangers?
Yeah, I mean,
unfair.
Tomorrow is potentially. It could end up being one of the biggest days for the Blackhawks hockey for the next 10 years. I mean, it's more likely that they drop than they rise.
I'm prepared for Will Smith.
I'm prepared to get hurt again. And it's very likely this has been the moral Blackhawks hockey this last year is just pain. But regardless, you're going to come away with an elite talent. Well, not tomorrow, but tomorrow we'll see which elite talent we have a better chance at grabbing. But 7 Central tomorrow, guys. And holy cow, I'm scared.
Yeah, I have a lot of fear.
Ooh, I just got it. We were 1, you guys were 2.
I'll take that.
Adam Fantilli's not a bad consolation prize.
Listen, as long as I'm, man, I just don't want to fall.
We actually the Red Wings could actually get the 3rd pick. It's a 0.2% chance. Very, very unlikely, but it's possible.
Listen, what's the best way? What's the best case scenario for Bettman? Like, if he had to rig it his way, because this is the most likely what it looks like tomorrow. Phoenix is somewhere in the top 3.
I think that the Hawks getting second, it makes a lot of sense.
Stop trying to make Phoenix happen. It's not going to happen.
It's Gary Bettman that's trying to make Arizona happen.
But that's also why it's proof to me that he isn't rigging anything, because Arizona's never gotten top 2, at least in recent memory.
But they need it now more than ever.
Well,
they don't even have a home.
It wouldn't be us because Gary Bettman does not like Detroit.
That's a shame. Maybe I don't know.
Just two big hockey markets, top 3, and then like a small market. Just like, here you guys go.
Give him the 3rd.
Yeah.
Anaheim getting 3rd wouldn't be bad even, because that would still net them a player who very much would be on par with Trevor Zegras in terms of helping move the needle there.
If the Hawks get 1st or 2nd, anybody can get 3rd. I don't care whoever gets 3rd. I'm thrilled for them.
Not St. Louis.
All right, you're right. I hope St. Louis doesn't get anybody.
St. Louis? They're 10 odds. They have the 10th best odds.
I hope they fall asleep and their alarm doesn't go off and they wake up and go, missed the draft.
And then they stub their toe.
Yep, that would be my dream.
And step on a Lego at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, tomorrow's the day, boys. We could be really happy. Whenever we record next, we could be some thrilled boys over here. We could be some
I'm not getting any whelms for the Wings.
No.
I know we either stay where we are or go down picks. We never go up picks ever.
Well, especially at where you're at. The odds just aren't great, but
the odds are not in our favor.
The odds weren't great for the New York Rangers, but they somehow jumped 30 other teams to get the 1st pick.
Yeah,
Jordan, you didn't believe. You gotta believe, bud.
I will say this though, if the Wings end up winning the draft lottery tomorrow and they get a guy like Connor Bedard, I think Steve Yzerman might legitimately say the rebuild's over. We're gonna hit the gas.
I'm gonna laugh at the first overall pick, and Steve Yzerman says we're gonna grab Leo Carlson.
Steve Yzerman's gonna have the interview with Bedard. You smoke weed?
If you guys leave us, I might not be at the next show.
You know what? That's safe.
I'll be very butthurt. You guys celebrating Bedard, and I'm just like, Will Smith.
Yeah, here we are.
What if you get Fantilli? What if we go 1-2?
As long as we get Fantilli, I personally will be fine. As long as we get Fantilli,
I just want top 3. Top 3.
Well, that's the
I
thing.
don't want to fall out.
In any other draft, though, Adam Fantilli probably would be the consensus 1st overall. This is the McDavid and Eichel draft all over again. And
might could be number 1 overall if he wasn't the hesitation with Russia.
Yeah.
But whoever gets number picks 1 through 3, you're gonna walk out of here with a really good player.
I would honestly say 1 through 4.
I would go through 5.
But that's the thing. This is
Who
such a deep
10?
draft. But no, tomorrow does really have the chance to change a franchise direction for the next 10 years. Hopefully, fingers crossed, the Red Wings finally cash in on some draft luck. I'm not holding my breath, but I'm hoping, I'm believing, Tim. I'm believing it will happen.
There we go.
As Tony Robbins said, I'm going to speak it into existence.
I'll wear my Red Wings yarmulke. I'll wear my Red Wings, sweatshirt. I'll do whatever I need to. Socks.
Yeah, grab that lucky pair of underwear that you wash only.
Every draft day.
Yeah. Grab that lucky pair of underwear that you wear for the big game.
You know, if you see a rabbit's foot, give it a rub. Find a penny facing up on heads, pick it up. Whatever your superstition is tomorrow, do it if your team's in the lottery, because there is 3 generational talents in this draft. So away we go.
Away
Here
we
we
go.
go.
And that's a good note to end it on. Everybody, thank you for tuning in and watching our show. This is always a fun time of year for us with the playoffs. There's just tons of games going on. The stakes are high. The players tend to elevate. It's a great time for both teams in the playoffs and out of the playoffs to speculate on what's going on with the draft coming up. If you liked what you heard or watched, feel free to give us a like, follow, share, retweet, whatever the currency is of choice on the platform you found us. We are all over the internet. Facebook, YouTube, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We're all over the internet. Feel free to check us out and give us any sort of feedback on the show. At the end of the day, this show is by fans for fans. There's no corporate sponsorship or anything like that. So we really do this for you guys. So feel free to help us out and help the show get better. But with all that being said, again, thank you for checking us out and tuning into the show. We will catch you guys back all here on the next one. For your host, Jordan Linscott, for my co-host, David Barnhouse, Tim Stoppanato, and Nicola Page, this has been another edition of the Stick Blade Podcast. We'll catch you guys back all here next time. Stay safe.